Good morning, everyone. Mike Fiebernitz, Remax Southern Shores, coming to you for another Fiebernitz Friday, where we throw casual Friday out the window. Still ending the week on a high note, wearing the suit, the tie, and the customary pocket square. So let's go over the numbers, and then we'll transition into this week's topic. As you can see, condo market is down 0.1% this past week, but you are up still for the year 0.8% this year compared to last year's average sales price. Residential market, you slid back this past week. First decline since the first week of January that you've had a weekly decline. You're only down 0.1%, so you're still up for the year 0.8% this year compared to last year's average sales price. And then the land market slid back again, the fifth consecutive weekly decline. You only slid back 0.1%, brings you down for the year 1.7% this year compared to last year's average sales price. So, as I always like to do at the end of every month or the first Friday of every month, my end of month market update for basically February 2024. Now, if you've watched my videos in the past, anytime I do a end of month market report, it's because the MLS will put out new statistics on some stats that are probably very important to you as a homeowner or condo owner here in the Myrtle Beach market. So I always like to take a look at the four most important stats that I'm looking at, and you usually will see that the four stats are always probably the same stats, but sometimes you might get a little surprising stat that changed significantly that's thrown in there. But the four stats, again, from last month: closed sales, new listings, average sales price, and pending sales. And this gives us a great gauge and idea on what the current real estate market is doing, so that way you know what's happening with the values in the real estate market. So let's start it off. Very first stat: closed sales, basically unchanged at the end of February. So like I said, the closed sales for the month of February is basically unchanged. It did increase just slightly by 0.2%, not 1%, not 2%, 0.2%. So it just barely increased. Now, the good news is that historically in the past, at the end of February, this minimal increase is basically normal for a February number. I've went back and saw that from January to February, it has been like a very small increase. So the good news is this is normal. Second stat: new listings or new properties that come on the market in February, unchanged. Okay, so the number of new listings for sale, properties that came on the market for sale, February hardly changed as well, just like the closed sales. So it did increase though, but it only decreased a slight amount. It only decreased 0.3% from January to February. And since a drop in interest rates has been pushed back again from the inflation reports that came out mid-February, sellers have basically pulled back in putting their property on the market for sale. So it's looking like sellers are going to hold off, and that's probably why the new listings started probably looking pretty good in the right direction. Then it just kind of tailed off once the inflation reports came out, which the inflation reports came out a lot higher than usual. And the Fed basically said we're going to hold off on drop in the interest rate, which a lot of sellers are waiting to happen. So that's probably why the new listings basically are unchanged. Third stat, average sales price decreased a lot. All right. Now, remember last month when the average sales price increased like a crazy number, 9%? Well, it dropped almost back down to the number at the end of January. Not all the way, but you basically almost lost all the 9% gain that you had at the end of January. It dropped over 6% this last month to $364,460 from $389,238. So that's a significant drop back. So brass tacks, until the interest rates drop, I just don't see the sales price having any kind of significant gain or increase, until we see that. I think we're in a stagnant period, until midsummer when they drop the rates, or they said they're going to drop the rates. June, July is what they're saying. Who knows when they will. So, brings me to the fourth and final stat, pending sales increased again. So that's kind of surprising because today, these numbers, today isn't all doom and gloom. Because the number of properties that went under contract jumped again from January to February, from 883 to 1,101 properties. That's actually a 20% increase in buyers who are putting in offers and getting them accepted by the sellers. So buyers are still making offers. They're still in the market buying properties, making offers and getting under contract. But you have to make sure to keep them in the contract until closing, because all these numbers are looking, not in the right direction, not good for the seller. But the pending sales are looking great for us as homeowners, condo owners that are looking to sell. But that tells me that offers are being made, they're being accepted, going under contract, but they're falling through either from inspections, financing, or anything else involved, and we're not getting the closed sales that we need to be getting to match the pending sales. So once you get a buyer on your property, you got to sink your teeth in. Don't let them go. Do whatever you can to get them through the due diligence period and get to the closing table. So overall, the real estate market is still pretty strong. It's just we're a little stagnant, and if we didn't have that inflation report hiccup this past month, there in mid-February that came out, then we'd probably looked a whole lot better, because then they wouldn't have pushed back the interest rates dropping. We'd probably suspect that the rates would probably drop a lot sooner than later. So unfortunately, that little hiccup is probably the reason. Folks, that's all I got this week. If you got any questions whatsoever, let me know. Drop me a comment, like, thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. Folks, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you guys next Friday for next Friday's Fiebernitz Friday. Have a good one, guys.